We're SlikRok Productions, and there has been a few guys we've been talking to out there lately on Portal Nation, on another page that we run. To be clear, Portal Nation is for people to come to when they have questions or they want to give advice. It's a place where you can share experiences. It's a place where you can come to. We don't bash on anybody. Everybody is, enters into this industry on a different level. And we had a lot of questions when we started doing portals, and we figured out a whole bunch of stuff by spending money and breaking stuff. So we've learned some tips over the years, and we set up Portal Nation just for that. So people can come there if you want to build a portal car, you have questions about it, or you want to share information. That's what Portal Nation's for. But for all you guys out there, portals do break sometimes, but portals break for reasons. We've broke three portals total in the last 3 years, I believe it's been. 2 of those were on the same car. I believe that was due to the size of tires we were running, and the alignment was always off on that car. It put a lot of strain on it. The other one I think was fluky. It was a cast problem with a gear, and I wasn't beating on the car at the time. It just broke. But if you run enough sets of portals, sooner or later something's going to happen. But alignment is extremely important on portal cars. The reason it's so important is because the whole reason you run portals is to run a lot bigger tire. And when you get a lot more rolling mass out there, it puts a lot more strain on the car. How you set your car up is really important for the longevity of the components that are on that car. So this is our display portal, and you can see here, obviously the wheel bolts on here on the rotor. If your alignment is off, if your toe is off on the front, or your camber is off on the front of the rear, you're putting a lot of strain on this particular bearing right here. This is the output shaft bearing that rides inside. So when you put a lot of strain on this bearing, sooner or later it is going to fail. So you put a lot of pressure on this. If you're driving down the highway and your toe's off on the front of your car, if this is a front portal, let's say your toe is out, you're putting a whole bunch of strain on the output shaft, which in return puts a whole bunch of strain on this bearing, which in return puts a whole bunch of strain on the gear that won't go on this gear, and sooner or later you're going to chuck a tooth out of a gear. Usually it's the idler gear that goes out, the smaller gear. That's what this one here is. This is one of them that we broke. Once a tooth goes out on that, it has nowhere to go. It churns in the casing, it breaks more teeth out of it, it shoots them out of the side, and it breaks the casing. That is another shout out I will give to the Gen 3s that are billet. On the one that I broke, it was a billet case. It didn't chuck the tooth out the side. This was actually the gear that was out of it. It took all those teeth out. They all stayed in the case. It did some damage inside, but we were able to pull the portal apart, put it back together, and get out in 3-wheel drive. So that is a big, positive thing about having a billet case as opposed to a cast case. The cast cases where we chuck tooth out of them, they start coming out the sides, they put big holes in it, and then you got to somehow get it back together to get off the trail, which kind of sucks. So the billet casings are better. Another thing is on the Gen 3s, this is a Gen 1 bearing here. The bearings are different on them. On the Gen 3s, they went to a big roller bearing in them, and so they'll take a lot more strain, so the longevity is better in them. But this is where portals fail. They fail because there's too much strain on the output shaft, whether it's too big of tires, your alignment's off, you're running the wrong tires, or driving style. But no matter how it comes down, they all break in the exact same way. But alignment is one of the tips that you can use to make your components last a lot longer. If your car is aligned properly, it puts a lot less stress on these, and we'll show you how we align our cars. So 3 words come to mind when we're doing alignments. That's camber, caster, and toe. We're not going to get into caster because it's pretty much irrelevant for 99% of the people out there. But if you have questions about it, you can call and talk to us about that. But it's preset from the factory, and even if you're running offset A-arms, that's figured out by the aftermarket manufacturers making them. It's not really a big deal. But camber and toe are really important. Toe is when your front tires or back tires are sitting this way or this way, and camber is when they're sitting this way or this way. Either one of those being off is really bad because it's really hard on the parts of your car. I don't care if you have a portal car or you don't. It's a lot worse on a portal car because your tire's a lot bigger, but either way, they need to be right.
So let's talk about, how does camber get off in the first place?
So camber gets off typically when you buy a car, the shocks on them are set for a certain weight. And so over time, the springs will start sacking, they'll start sinking on their own. The other thing is we do aftermarket cages, we do boxes, we do tools, we put winches on them, we put a lot heavier stuff on them. So as the car gets heavier or the springs start wearing out, they start sinking, you start getting a lot more camber out of them.
Okay. So knowing that, how do we properly adjust for camber?
Well, there's only two ways to adjust for camber. What we typically do that we like the most is we have lower A-arms that have camber adjustments on them. So if your A-arms have got adjustable points on the bottom of them, you can adjust those out. So if your tire is, you know, sitting out, you can pull that A-arm back in and you can straighten it back out.
Perfect.
But if you don't, then the option is preload. If your A-arms are non-adjustable, which a lot of A-arms are not adjustable, really the only way to straighten that back out is to put preload back into your shocks.
Which isn't always the best option.
No, we don't like doing that because it affects articulation, it affects ride quality, and the proper way to do it, if you don't have adjustable A-arms, is to replace your springs. If you guys, if you guys want to go down that road, you can hit us up. We know a lot of really good shock companies out there. We have a lot of solutions for that kind of stuff, but really the only way to adjust that back out of there on a quick is to grab the nut on top of the shock, take the load off of it, spin that thing down, find zero back out. And you can find zero by putting a level alongside of your tire. Honestly, you can eyeball them pretty damn close if you do a few of them, but you want them straight up and down. And the same thing goes for the rear.
Right.
So on the rear, you adjust toe with your radius rods. And if you have a non-trailing arm system on the back, it's kind of already factored into there as long as your ride height is good. But there's so many adjustments on these cars. When you take them apart, you're putting A-arms on them. Some are adjustable, some are not, depending on what shocks you have on them, depending on what radius rods. There's a lot of variations when you put them back together. Alignment is extremely important.
So let's talk about toe. How do you adjust it, the importance of it?
So toe is extremely important, and the common mistake that I think is made when people adjust toe is they put it back on the ground, they do their alignment on it, they drive out, it doesn't work out. These cars settle. Everybody knows if you put one of these cars up on a jack, you put it back down on the ground, it's sitting with the cambers off on it. Yeah. You really need to get in your car, put the steering wheel back and forth, roll it back and forth a couple times, let the car settle to where it's ride height, and then adjust it. Okay. And you adjust it, you do the same thing once you've made an adjustment on it. So what Jake and I do is if we have an extra person in here, we'll have them sit inside, hold the steering wheel straight. I hate crooked wheels, pet peeve of mine. But we will get out here. Every single tire has got a center line in it, a molded center line. Jake will find the center line on his side. I'll find it on my side. We'll look at the number. We'll go to the back of the car, and we will keep adjusting our tire rod ends until that number is the same on both sides. That will keep your tires running true. Right. Yeah, it keeps you straight.
Yeah, and like you said, after every adjustment, you wiggle the wheel, move it back and forth, make sure it's settled.
Yeah, every time you mess with it and you turn it, when you're pulling the tires, it'll start pulling up on the suspension a little bit. It changes it out a little bit. Just every time you make an adjustment, roll it forward, roll it backward, move the wheel a little bit, let the car settle back down, then take your measurement after that.
Perfect.
So if, like I said, I can't reiterate this enough. When you have big tires, you have a lot of rolling mass, alignment is really important. It wears stuff out prematurely. The fails that we have had have been due to this. It's the wrong tires, our alignments have been off, and we figured it out the hard way, and it doesn't take a whole lot to wear stuff out prematurely. Right. But when you set your car up, do it properly, double check yourself, and you'll get a lot more life out of your portals, a lot more life out of the bearings, and you won't be stuck on the trail.
So now that we've talked about alignment, camber, toe, the other really big important factor is having the proper tire.
Right. This is probably the one thing that we see the most out of, that we talk about the most, at least on the internet. A lot of the guys that hit us up that are breaking stuff or having some problems, steering problems or breaking something, are running the wrong tires on their car. Now, I'm not saying we know everything. I'm not saying that we know every combination that works properly, but we've tried a lot of stuff. And if you're running a truck tire, if you're running a tire that's made for a truck, the chances of you having problems increases dramatically. Truck tires are made for a 4,000 to 8,000 pound rig. They're a lot wider, they're a lot heavier, and in return, we've done this, we know, we would air our tires down to nothing because they're so much heavier and thicker.
To get some sidewall flex.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get on a hard packed road, or you get on the pavement, and it's so much more pull. Plus, they're a wider tire anyway. We were running 12 1250s, 1350s, 1450s, you know, 35s, 37s. It puts a hell of a lot more strain on your car. And so, you know, you take a big tire like these, this is a big, huge tire, but there's not a lot of surface area when you're on the asphalt on them, so they don't really pull real hard. Yeah, they're a big tire, they're super aggressive, but it really has pretty good road manners because of that. If you look at the SlikRok Warrior, that tire was designed specifically for what we were doing. Right. That is a round top tire, not a lot of surface area on it. You wear that thing down, it goes like, it's awesome in the rocks, it's awesome in the mud, it's awesome with what we do on it, but it has good road manners. We had that problem with the Maxxis tires we had. Great tire, great rock tire, but really soft, flat top tire beats the shit out of your steering. And if your alignment is off, it's gonna pull a hell of a lot more. The size of tire and the design of tire that you choose for a portal car is extremely important.
So if you guys have any questions at all about alignment, reach out to us. We're happy to help any way that we can.
This is what we do at SlikRok. We've made a lot of mistakes over the years, and we like to share all the information we have about components, about our experiences, about the trials and errors that we've gone through. So if you have any questions, hit us up. Hopefully we can save you from making the same mistakes we've made.